Hello, welcome to the Out There channel. This is live stream number 13, lucky number 13. And tonight we have a special guest, Earl from Southern California, MUFON.
That would be it.
And we'll be speaking with some special cases that he's got and some photographs, and he'll read out stuff. And I'll just cue some music, make sure it's all working, and see if people are going to connect. How's that sounding? Not too loud?
Sounds good.
I use this guy quite a lot. Sounds creepy music.
I like it.
Yeah, it's kind of relaxing too. So it's got that sort of opera background to it, with the singing. It's amazing what they can do with synthesizers.
No.
Yeah. I've got this logo for the last stream I did.
That's pretty interesting.
My last, yeah.
At least you gave me good teeth. Thank you.
Yeah, the smokers have got bad teeth, I know. Well, he's
I vape, I don't smoke, so.
He's a tea drinking UK ghosty. Okay, we're sort of, looks like we're going, and looks like we got no one dropping on just yet, though.
Oh, well.
We'll just head off.
Yeah,
and
well, let's just talk about, how are you doing, Paul? Anything interesting?
What am I doing? I just got back from the dog. It's nice and sunny out there. It's like summer over here, and it should be like middle of the winter.
Oh.
Yeah, it's almost t-shirts and shorts ago. But I was talking to a guy there, and he says, "What are you doing today?" I said, "Well, I'm doing a live stream with Earl from MUFON today." And he says, "Wow." I said, "Are you into live streams now?" Yeah, and we talk about UFO stuff, and everybody joins in worldwide and has a good time. And he says, he started talking about UFO stuff like everybody does. And he says, "What did they say about the Kaikoura lights incident?" And I said, "Well, all the skeptics wrote it off. They said the radar fixes were faulty equipment." And
which one was that?
The Kaikoura lights in New Zealand, 1978, was it? So yeah. And I said, yeah, it was located on 2 radars, and the skeptics said, yeah, those radars back in those days was prone to ghost images. And they said it was Venus and squid boat lights. And he said, "No way." So he doesn't believe that story.
Well, it's the anniversary of the Washington flyover. Back, was it 1952, I believe, where they had UFOs. People could see them. They appeared on radar, and people saw them in the sky when Washington, D.C. was flown over by. It was like the day the Earth stood still. Not very different, except there wasn't a landing, and the robot didn't come. Gort didn't come out and kill them all with his laser eyes or anything. But as far as the flyover went, it's pretty ominous. It's Earth versus the flying saucers, I guess. A show of power. There are a few nights. I think there were 2 or 3 nights where they had flyovers, and President Truman was in office at the time, and of course he was quite militant. And that definitely got things churning in Washington. It was right after that you had, that they put out estimate of the situation, and all that came out. Where they had to address the UFO problem. It was suddenly became a national security issue. Still is, actually, and as far as Washington is concerned. I don't know if they understand it yet,
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm familiar with that guy right there.
That's the first case we're going to talk about. I
Sure.
think, what was the first image though?
They're interchangeable, really. There are a couple of the entities that are. I have a case who is a Homeland Security agent. I can't say his name because he could lose his job and get into problems. But I've been
Well, that makes
following him
sense.
for a couple of years. Yeah, I've been following him for a couple of years since I had his case. Um, his case is actually still open. I'm still waiting to get more evidence on it. As you know, we're very, very picky about what we call an unknown at MUFON. But and Jeff, my boss, originally was a little iffy on the case because I guess that Stanton Friedman had originally gotten a case through him. And I talked with Kathleen Martin, who's Betty and Barney Hill's niece. Spoke with her about his case a few weeks ago, and she said, "Well, Stanton is kind of a nuts and bolts kind of guy, and with experiencer cases, you really have to approach them differently. There's as much psychological stuff going on usually. I mean, it's more or less it's a home invasion, is what it is. I mean, it's an alien home invasion. People get PTSD from this. Oftentimes starts early in a person's childhood." And speaking with Kathleen Martin, she thought that Stanton was maybe the wrong person to have looked into his case. I have spoken with and met with a man on quite a few occasions now. I know his family. I know his wife. I've met his daughter and his dog. You'd like his dog.
Yep.
And the man is really a kind of a Boy Scout. He's a black belt in karate, like the highest level
Oh, yeah.
of black belt. Yeah. He runs the TSA group, the Homeland Security group at one of our major airports out here. And after speaking with him and knowing him for a couple of years now, I take his case very, very seriously. And I think that we're going to be closing it soon, that we will be closing it as an unknown.
Right.
My boss at MUFON, Jeff Krause, has slowly warmed up to the case as time has gone on. And since I got this case a couple of years ago, Jeff has met with this gentleman as well a couple of times.
Well,
I'm going to use a pseudonym that he allows me to use when I speak about his case. So we're going to call him Andy.
right.
So,
Okay, let me just interrupt you. A Homeland Security guy would have regular mental tests to prove the sane mind and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So he'd be more
the background checks.
Yeah.
The background checks are crazy. I mean, he's got security clearances, and he's the guy at the airport that's looking for the. He is sort of one of the head guys at a major airport.
So if he's coming out with these crazy stories, he could lose his job. You see.
Oh, certainly
So
he could.
He's going to need a alias.
Yes, we're using an alias.
Oh, we got one person with us. Renee Cruz has just joined us on the chat here. Hello.
Oh.
He comes from South Africa, is it? And he has family in Philippines and travels between the two countries. So he told me last time.
Fantastic.
So Earl's with us, Rene, to talk about some of his unique UFO cases from MUFON. So it should be an interesting couple of hours.
I guarantee I'm going to give you aliens. I will give you aliens tonight. These are all cases that I've closed as unknowns, and we have very, very stringent parameters for. I mean, they won't let me call something an unknown just because I like the case or it is kind of a popping case. That doesn't matter. You have to have evidence. And the case that we're talking about right now is a gentleman who's a Homeland Security agent. I got his case. It was a couple of years ago now. Since then, I've been following him and getting updates. I talk to the guy every few weeks, at least every 3 or 4 weeks. I try to, keep in touch with him. But let me read, let's see here. I'm just going to read you the sighting report that he put in to MUFON. This was the first thing that I read by, and we're calling him Andy because we can't use his actual name. He could lose his security clearances and his job and everything else. So this is what Andy put into MUFON. And more or less, he preluded this with encounter with a gray who materialized in my bedroom. On December 25th, 2016, I went to bed between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. At approximately 3 a.m. in the morning, I was awoken by a commotion in my bedroom involving my wife and daughter. I didn't investigate the matter, and I tried to return to sleep. However, my young daughter and wife failed to return to the bedroom. I got up to find out what happened. I found my wife and daughter going to sleep in my daughter's bedroom. My wife briefly explained to me that our small dog, you'll like this, Paul, who originally went to sleep with me, pooped on the far side of the bed. When my wife and daughter got into bed, my daughter got it on her leg. My wife cleaned my daughter, semi-cleaned the sheet, and we have a very small dog, under 5 pounds. So we're not talking we're not talking a huge mess. Anyway, I went back to my bedroom. I changed the sheets because I could still see a bit of the dog waste. I then told my wife that she could return to bed with me, but she was too tired to get back up, so I let her be. Well, I'm a light sleeper, so it was hard for me to fall back asleep. I want to mention I wear a sleeping mask to bed at night. I take magnesium before going to bed because both help me to fall asleep faster, and I have more sound sleep that way. I've had sleeping problems my whole life. I TV for about 1 hour before it becomes again. When I fell asleep, I had a vivid dream that bothered me, and I suddenly awoke. It was still dark outside. I was lying on my left side. I was thinking about the dream when all of a sudden I felt static electricity all around me. At that moment, I knew that they were coming. I started to roll over onto my back at the static electricity as it grew stronger, but I also began to feel paralysis in my body. It felt like I was moving in a giant jar of molasses. I was just able to begin to turn on my right side before I was unable to move any further. My right arm and hand were hanging off the bed. I then realized I could see through my night sleeping mask. He could see through a sleeping mask that he wore. And you can't really see through it. I looked at the mask. I held it and I looked at it. I then saw, I was seeing this. I realized that I was seeing the static electricity. I then saw a small gray alien, no more than 5 feet tall, materialize through my bedroom wall on my right side. It was then standing.
We'll show some photographs. We show some photographs with this alien. This is the alien we're talking about.
Yes, that's the one right there.
The right photo.
Yeah.
And that one there. Is that the same one? Zoom in a bit.
Yes.
It's got more of the big almond eyes.
The wraparound eyes, which is kind of proverbial.
And
now I would like to go in and interject. This gentleman that we're talking about, he began having visitations when he was 7 years old. At first, he believed that they were, and I'm going to return to this report, which was when I first encountered Andy as a field investigator. But I'm going to give you a little background on him. When he was 7 years old, he started having what his parents called night terrors. But it was the same kind of thing. He would become paralyzed. Entities would materialize through a portal in his wall, which is very, very common in abduction cases. We hear that over and over and over again. That what will happen is that your wall or ceiling or wherever they're coming through, it's kind of like in Scooby-Doo cartoons, where it's blah, 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 and so his wall would become
jelly.
It would become like jelly. It would become semi-permeable, is the word. And what would happen is that he would have a machine come in that would hover over him while he was in his bed. Now, he was 7 years old, and this kept going on through up until he was a teenager. And he went, and it would be horrifying. And they were doing experiments on him, or taking blood, taking DNA, whatever it was that they were, you know, he wasn't sure because he couldn't see everything. But this thing would hover in. He called it noisy. Eventually, he gave it a name. That he called noisy. And this is what he told his mom and his dad, that this thing would come in through the wall. It would hover over him. It would do experiments on him, and then it would go back out. And after this, it would be followed by this creature that you're seeing right now, which he gave the name Ho to. He called them Ho. And these were just childhood names that he gave them. He's not even sure why he called the alien that. He said, no, the alien didn't have a name, but he was the same person. He kept having the same aliens visit him over and over. So he wound up giving them names. And that was the main one. This alien was more like a tan gray, that he had a gray look to his skin, but it was sort of a darker tan color involved as well. This happened up until his teenage years. His mom and dad, at some point, they took him to a psychologist. They were really worried about him. They thought that it was night terrors or he was imagining stuff. But apparently, eventually, both his mother and his father heard stuff, and they saw weird lights in the house. And they started thinking that perhaps this was more than just monsters under the bed, and the devil in the closet, that this was something that was really and truly, because other than this, Andy was a very kind of a Boy Scout. No, not just kind of suburban. I think that they might have gone to church, but no, it wasn't like.
So this alien visitation, that lasted for many years, or just?
It lasted up until his teenage years, and then it calmed down. But every now and then, it's like
today.
He still gets.
Does he still get visitations?
He thinks of it as like a checkup or whatever it is that they check in on him.
But does that still happen today?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm going to return to the file that I was reading before. Now, you remember he was saying that he fell asleep, his wife and his daughter went into the other room, and this is what happened. I saw a small gray alien, no more than 5 feet tall, materialize through my bedroom wall on my right side. It was then standing right through my nightstand and in front of the light. It was standing right through my nightstand in front of the light fixture. I remember thinking how diminutive it was in size. He then grabbed my right hand that was hanging off the bed. He squeezed it, and I heard a voice inside of my head say, "Yes, we are real." While he was squeezing my hand, I felt a sudden sense of euphoria, excitement, and elation. I then communicated back to him using my thoughts, and I said, "Hi, my name is..." As soon as that, the event was over. The being left through the bedroom wall, and I remained paralyzed for a little while longer. The static electricity in the room started to dissipate. I was in such a state of shock, I couldn't believe it. I sat up in bed, not knowing what to do. I laid back down because then a deep comfort overtook me. I felt such a great sense of satisfaction because I now knew in my heart and mind that I wasn't going crazy, and that the others knew, that I wasn't going crazy as well. I had been given peace of mind. I went back to sleep after another vivid dream, which still around 8:30 Pacific Standard. My wife still, but she awoke a short time later, and I told her everything. I was expecting her to tell me it was a dream, but she said the exact opposite. She believes that our dog sensed something was going to happen, and that's why it went potty in our bed. Our dog that we've had for 7 years has never done that. She also mentioned that our dog was acting very, very strange the night before. We thought that she was getting sick or maybe had eaten something bad. This ended up causing my wife and daughter to sleep in another room, which left me sleeping alone in the bedroom. He goes on to say, and this is just kind of a reiteration of sort of what I've told you before, I've seen and experienced things my whole life, starting when I was a little boy all the way up until now. And he talks about the reports that he's made to me in the past, and that more or less Stanton Friedman kind of wrote him off. Stanton, he likes more the nuts and bolts kind of UFOs, but this anyway. So since this happened, I've gone. I've driven up. It's about good 2-hour drive for me. He lives up the California or down the California coast, and I've met with him a few times. The story never changes. The gentleman is just as good of a witness as you could hope to have, with security clearances of his own. He's in just a position of trust, and we've talked about why he thinks now. He believes that he's had an implant put into him. He doesn't want to have it removed. In fact, he doesn't. I mean, he just because he feels like ET has a plan for him. He doesn't know what it is, but he feels that perhaps it has to do with his homeland security position. He's just really not sure, but is a very, very good case, very, very good witness. Again, he's like a Boy Scout, and when I've since I've been working for MUFON, Jeff, my boss, has been giving me a lot of the experiencer cases. Jeff is kind of a nuts and bolts guy too. He's a bit more like Stanton Friedman. And so he really kind of had a rough time when he would get the abduction cases or experiencer cases. Right. And Andy, again, he doesn't feel like he was ever abducted. He felt like he was visited. He doesn't ever remember seeing a craft or being inside of a craft, but he's seen has had multiple encounters with mostly the proverbial grays. Ho, who is the taller gray that he's known his whole life, is more of a tan gray. But anyway, that's the first case I wanted to bring to you guys, and it's an ongoing case. I've left it open. We're just pretty much figuring that eventually the wife and the daughter are going to see something other than just the lights and hear strange noises that wake them up or something. And that's a concern.
Just got some more emails from you. Must have taken a while to get through.
Oh yeah, they're kind of big files. I know. I
haven't actually saved them, so I'm sort of working on that while you're talking.
Okay.
I'm just got the Jeff one that you're talking about.
Which one?
Unless you sent me some more ones. Another home security one. Did you send 2 emails for each of those guys?
I think I sent you. I sent you an email for each image. I think this time.
Well, I've got another 2. I'm a wee bit confused now.
Well, the next case I would like to go into is
the Jeff one. Was it the Jeff one?
Yes, this gentleman.
Let me just see if I got the right.
I can actually use his name. He's this gentleman does not wish to remain anonymous.
First name should be all right, though. You'd think.
Yeah, this guy does not. He doesn't have like security clearances or anything like that. This was actually my first unknown that I ever closed for MUFON. Let's see. The date was June. Check it out. June 9th. 2016. So it was just a little over two, a little over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And well, let me tell you. I'll just read you his report again. That's the best way, you know. I mean, a lot of these stories I've heard so many times from the witnesses themselves, especially with abduction cases. You want to keep on talking to the person. You want to make sure that there's no embellishments, or they're not trying to, you know, it's just every little detail you have to get. They're harder to prove than some of the other ones. That is Jeff's illustration that he did for me, and it will make sense in a couple of seconds. He drew his ex-wife having a witch hat because he's got a pretty good sense of humor. But
oh, hang on, I just got it locked on yours at the moment. People can only see you. Okay, now they can see the drawing.
I'm going to read this is the Jeff Edgemon case. And
I'll leave the picture on the screen and take it off your camera so people can see the picture. So that's the only picture we got for this one?
I think that might be the only one. I could have sent you a picture of him. I'll look for it. I think I've got a picture of him as well. I don't think he
I'm just
minds
still
if I
waiting
share
for
it.
Yes. Okay,
but
you can talk about the case.
Sighting, this one blew my mind. It happened near China Lake, up near where Edwards Air Force Base is, heart of the desert. This was the first unknown that I ever closed. I had been doing this for almost a year when I got my first unknown. You know, I had a lot of Mylar balloon sightings, a lot of drones. You know, I mean, J. Allen Hynek's, his rule of thumb still holds today, that 90 to 95% of the UFO sightings that are reported can be explained in prosaic terms. We see a lot of drones, Mylar balloons. I wish they would make them illegal, because they not only bring down the power lines, you know, they'll short people's power out, you know. Yeah, they do cause all kinds of problems. But we even have a hoaxer who's in Los Angeles by the name of Robert Beanham, who he has these little meets on top of hilltops, where people come out with binoculars and he summons UFOs. Now, I've seen this guy do what he does, and we saw an airplane fly over this little white Piper Cub with green trim, and he had just said, "Oh, well, the UFOs are here." He had been on his phone, and then he looked all meditative, and then he said, "They're here." And so people are looking at these things through their telescopes, and I saw all these little Mylar balloon constructs. I mean, apparently they tape them together or crazy glue these things together to look like octopus-type aliens. You know, he calls them biological UFOs. But they're actually Mylar balloons. You could see them, and it was evident and so obvious that, you know, it was so easy to figure out what he was doing and to write him off. And I remember feeling kind of angry because, like, I see he had at least 60 people on that hilltop, maybe more. And I'm thinking, well, they should be at our MUFON meeting, you know. But here they are on top of a hill looking at Mylar balloon constructs. And the guy, what he does is he's got a friend who's got a little green and white trim Piper Cub, and he lets them out up in the clouds. He calls them on his cell phone, and then he gets all meditative, and that's when they start seeing these things, right? So, you know, there's a lot of stuff like that we get, and that's 90 to 95% of what we get. There aren't that many hoaxers, but there are hoaxers. There are intentional hoaxers. You know, for YouTube and what have you, we get those. This was not a hoax. This just absolutely, the deeper that I went into this guy's case, the more interesting it became, the more detailed it was, and every single little piece fit together like this 1,000-piece puzzle, and just every detail. And then I would bring something up to him. It would, his sighting happened in 1992. The gist of the Jeff Edgemon sighting is that he had a newborn son who had been born a month before his sighting. And he and his wife were going up to Bakersfield to go and visit his brother-in-law, and so they could see the new baby. So he and his wife packed up their 3 sons into the back of their car. It's a station wagon, and they were driving through the desert. It was in the kind of pretty late in the evening when they were driving there. And I'm just going to read from his file.
You want people to watch you read, or do you want the graphic on the screen at the same time?
Yeah, you can keep that graphic up there. That's good, because that is what he saw. This is what happened.
It switches between who talks the loudest otherwise. So I can control it. Always stays on the screen, you see here. Yeah. So I'll tick on there.
I'm just going to read his file. I first spoke with a witness on the telephone on March 11th, 2016, 4:00 p.m. I followed up with 2 more phone calls as well as multiple text messages with the witness. And speaking with the witness, I was quite impressed with his remembered details, his emotional reactions to his memory, as well as the consistency of his story, which I'd heard him recount 3 or 4 times. The witness never changed nor embellished the details of his story. His voice expressed the depth of emotion appropriate to such a life-altering event. His voice audibly trembled as he spoke of his 3 young sons who somehow remained in some form of stasis in the back seat of the car, as he and his wife experienced 8 hours of missing time. The witness has provided a handwritten 12-page narrative of his experience, as well as an illustration depicting the incident. The witness has also filled out MUFON form number 8 for abduction cases. The witness is an oil field worker and is a high school graduate. As far as the results from, we put these cases through a little app that we have. The information quality was 100%. Reliability was above 60%. Strangeness factor was 57.4%. And he got a total certainty index of 33.14%, which is actually very high for a case that's like this. It's a historic case. Also, what I mentioned and suggested sources for people to look at in corroborating what this gentleman went through. There was a book that I had read called The Mojave Incident by Ron Felber, which was published in 2015, which described an alien abduction in the same general area, but except it occurred in 1988. That was similar to this. It was in the same area. My synopsis of the case reads as so. On August 23rd, 1992, while stopped along a remote stretch of the Mojave Desert, the witness and his then wife observed a group of bright stars, which appeared to slowly and intentionally gather above them, and then dropped down to the valley floor. The stars then moved in towards the experiencer and his wife, casting shadows through the desert scrub. The witness described how he kept seeing an orange glowing ball shape in the periphery of his vision. As he tried to focus on it, it would move again, just beyond his range of vision at the corner of his eye. Quote, looking back at it now, I think I was being intentionally distracted by the orb, like you'd distract a kitten with a laser pointer. One point of light continued to approach the witness, growing brighter as it approached, until finally it resolved into a silver disc, 35 to 50 feet in diameter. There were no lights. Wow. It was only lit by the quarter moon reflected off the flat silver hull surface. It passed the experiencer, quote, faster than anything I've ever seen. It was there, then it was gone before I could even point at it. The witness heard his wife's voice speaking behind him to his left.
Oh, it's got ex-wife on the drawing.
His ex-wife, but she was his then wife. She said
He's
they
got a
aren't.
witch's hat on.
He drew her with a witch's hat. Well, she left him. Now, this is a part of the story, is that he wanted.
He wanted
to talk about this. I know, it made me laugh too. And the guy's a character when you get to know him. He's just kind of a good old boy, kind of a guy. He's an oil worker. He's no nonsense. You know, you'd like his politics, Paul. They're a little different.
Now, let's not go down that road.
Yeah, but I like this guy, and I've again, you know, now I've known him for almost 3 years, and no embellishments. You know, you're not going to see him on TV. Sorry about that. There goes my microphone.
Technical problems.
He had no reason. He had no reason to make this story up.
No.
So anyway, he saw this disc that just like zipped past him. He said it was almost like it was from Roadrunner cartoon or something. That's how fast it was. It was just unbelievable. But he could see the moon reflected on the side of the craft. And now we originally did not have an exact date for this sighting, which was a problem. You know, I want to have a date if I'm going to give something an unknown status. We went back in farmers' almanacs, and I found when they had an exact quarter moon. And it was a month after his son was born. And that stirred his memory. It's like, that's right. It was exactly a month. Exactly a month after he was born. That's why we were going there. You know, it was to introduce wife's family to their new little, you know, nephew. And this was the kind of thing that happened, you know, and so I was able to get the exact date of it. It matched the rest of his story beautifully, and everything just kept falling together, you know. So after he saw this thing zip by him, his ex-wife said to him, they aren't going to harm us. I know, it's very funny. That's from his MUFON file, by the way.
I just love this guy already.
Head of our experiencer research team.
He's my sense of humor.
Yes, I thought you'd like that. By the way, Kathleen Marden said that this was one of the best documented abduction cases that she's seen. I mean, I've got like a good 30 pages of material from him, not just, you know, his written expression of what happened and his illustrations, but just following up on it and finding how he found the exact date and the farmer's almanac and where, you know, how old is, you know, it just, everything just kept on accumulating, and the case just it just kind of took form. I almost felt like,
well, for a witness. Well, the car's pretty good. He's pretty good artist.
Yeah. Now I guess I was wrong about being a station wagon. I guess it was just a regular car, but you know, it's been a couple of years. Yeah. So now this is where it goes from here. His wife spoke from behind the witness to his left. Now he lost sight of his wife. When the lights were coming towards them, she was originally standing in front of him. And she was suddenly not there. He was looking for her, and he was worried. You know, he was scared about her. He was scared for his kids in the car. He was just going out to take a leak. You know, is what was going on, and all this happened.
On the car drawer next thing.
The stars, they came around in a circle. Okay, they thought that they were stars. Then he thought, well, maybe they're satellites. You know, he's going, well. But they don't do that. They go around the Earth. You know, this is like they're going around us. They gathered around them, and then they dropped to the desert floor, and then the one star kept on coming closer and closer to them until it resolved right in front of them. All the while that this was going on, this little red ball was playing around in the weeds, maybe 10, 15 feet away from him. And that was bugging him. It was distracting him. And I've had other cases
Mm-hmm.
that are similar where people see like an orb-like object, and it sort of distracts them, and they're watching that, and then the real business
Mm-hmm.
happens like behind their backs. You know, I have another case that's exactly like that. You know, that's another one of
Have you
my
heard?
best cases.
I've heard cases where they talk about seeing owls, the bird owl,
Mm-hmm.
the
Oh yeah.
guys. Have you heard those ones,
Oh yeah. No, that's a screen memory.
or is
That's a
that just a
proverbial
myth?
one. No, that's true.
Mm,
People will
mm,
remember in experiencer cases. They will often remember. They won't see the entity. They'll see, you know, they'll control your mind and give you a peaceful image and something that's kind of, you know, something that you could expect to see, like an owl or, you know, dewy-eyed deer, you know, Bambi.
oh
And
yeah,
but
yeah.
no, it wasn't Bambi, you know. It wasn't ET looking for Reese's Pieces either. You know,
No,
they want you sometimes. So what
no.
happened now? So he watched this disc zip by him. He could see the moon reflected in it. It was a real object. It was acting. It had physical properties. It seemed to be obeying Newtonian physics, except for when it went, you know, practically light speed past him. Um, so his wife was there, and then he didn't see her. He was getting worried, and that's when he heard her behind him. He turned around, and she said, "They are not going to harm us." As she spoke, uh, she, the experiencer states that as the disc approached, he raised his arm to point to it, and the next thing he remembers was leaning against the bumper of the family car with his wife 8 hours later at 8 a.m. in the morning.
Right.
He went and looked for the kids in the back seat of the car. Was the first thing. Is like, you know, you hear this a lot in these cases, especially
Right.
when somebody's been abducted from their car or around their car, that they don't really talk about it. Your lips are sealed. It's
Yeah.
almost like
Yes. Got the kids drawing on the diagram. Is that
we're
the kid?
given like some sort of a little, you know, nudge, a little psychic nudge to where, well, don't talk about it now. You know, everything's normal again. If you get back in the car, you see everything's okay, just drive home,
Mm-hmm.
forget about it, don't say anything about it. Um, and that's kind of what happened.
Was there any
He
more
and his
pictures
wife.
from this guy? I only got one picture
That's
for this
really
one.
the only that was really the only illustration that
Did he not have
he
any
made
pictures
for me.
of? You don't
Mm-mm.
have any
I mean,
pictures
you could
or
go look
images
up
of
China
alien
Lake area.
grays?
He doesn't remember what they looked like. You see now his
No.
mind, as far as everything after, when he's pointing to the desk and it zips by after talking to his wife, then it's blank. There's 8 hours that just are gone. And it was the same way for his
Mm.
ex-wife. That's one of the reasons why she's his ex-wife now, because she kind of went to the Christian church to deal with it. She wouldn't talk
Uh-huh.
to me because she said that she thought that it was demons or the devil at work. For Jeff,
Oh yeah, get that a bit.
but Jeff, you know, he felt the mystery, and he does not remember anything except when he like suddenly was leaning with her against the bumper of his car. He got in, he checked his boys out, they were okay. They got back into the car and they continued on their drive. Everybody was worried about them.
Mhm.
I guess they'd, you know, made phone calls to police. It was too early to put in a missing person report or anything. Uh, but that's the Jeff Edgemon
Yeah.
case, and it's sort of the case that just keeps on giving. You know, the story never changes. But the more I think about it, it's just kind of a stunning example of an alien, just a classic alien abduction. Whatever happened to him, we've talked about it. He may be willing to become to get hypnotically regressed. Kathleen Mock referred him to her after I classified his case as an unknown. Um, And she did, she told him if he can get up to Florida, that she will hypnotically regress him. So we'll see if his travels ever take him to that area. If they do, then perhaps we'll hear more. Although I've talked with him, and he kind of goes back and forth with it. He says right now it's kind of just this magical thing, and I know that we're not alone. But if I remember it, it might become this horror that I'm afraid of. And right now he doesn't feel any fear about it. So we'll see what happens. I'm not sure if he wants to be hypnotically regressed or even if he should be. What we have is pretty amazing. And we learned a lot of things from
Peter Robertson know this case?
I've talked with you're talking about Peter Robbins. I've talked with Peter a little bit about it. Peter's aware of that case. I've talked with him. It was a couple years ago, and I talked with him about it. And Peter was Bud Hopkins' old assistant back in the 80s and the 90s, and when Bud Hopkins was sort of spearheading the whole field of experiencer study and research and hypnotic regression and all of this. So and I remember Peter was really impressed with the case, and Kathleen Martin was she's going to be. Kathy's working on a new book right now. It's kind of an experiencer's textbook, from what I heard. And this is one of the cases that we've talked about that's probably going to be in the book, because there's just so much. I've got so much documentation. Come on and talk
about a book sometime.
Yeah, and they need that. I mean, we need a textbook. The only way to learn how to research.
Yeah, maybe she can give us some publicity by her coming on.
Well, we'll see. She's a busy lady. She's at the Roswell Festival.
Yeah, most people seem to,
like everybody else. I was hanging out with her and speaking with her at Alien Con out here in Pasadena 3 weeks ago, and since then she's been up to where was it? She was doing another conference up in Philadelphia or something, and then she's at Roswell. Yeah. She's a busy lady, and she runs the MUFON's experiencer research team, which it looks like I'm going to possibly be part of. I'm filling the application out now. Actually, she asked me if I would like to be part of. So
there's always lots going in California, there, isn't there?
Yeah, we're busy. I mean, we have
lots of events going on.
Well, there's just, we're overpopulated here for one thing. So there's more eyes to the sky, more people to experience things. And it's California. So we get our occasional, you don't want to say nut job, but yeah, we get our occasional interesting person, And I'm just very, very picky about what I call an unknown. It drives some people nuts. Some of our field investigators have just, quite frankly, we've lost a couple here and there over the years because we're real tight about evidence and being able to corroborate a case. I've been doing this for almost 3.5 years now. Yeah. 3.5 years ago, I've been doing this, and I think I've got all of 15 cases that I've classified as unknowns, and that's out of over 400, almost 500 cases that I've closed in that time. I get a lot of cases.
So we've got, I always have 3 people watching us now, by the way.
Great. Well, hello.
We got 3 people watching us, and we will open up to questions at the end of Earl's presentation, so you can come on.
Anybody has a question now, I'd love to answer it.
In the side chat, yes, they can do it in the side chat. But I'm talking about we're open up to Hangouts, and anyone that's got a headset can come in and talk to you directly if they want to before you head off. But we've got a few more cases to go through yet.
Sure. No, we got plenty of cases.
Which one do you want to talk about next, or are we finished with this one?
Am I finished with it? I think that's a case that, now that's the other thing that's interesting. and one of the reasons why I love the experiencer cases, because they're never really over. I mean, if you've been abducted once, you're probably going to get abducted again. Or if they've visited you, there's always, I mean, in like the case of Andy, my Homeland Security case that we were talking about earlier. I mean, I've left his case open because it's ongoing. And it's very strange, I mean, in some ways, it was harrowing for him as he was growing up because he didn't understand it. But then it quieted down as he became an adult, and he started to question himself whether this had actually happened to him. So when he had his most recent visitation, that's why he said that he was relieved. And I mean, the entity actually took his hand, that he couldn't move. He was paralyzed, but he took his hand and said, yes, we are real. Yes, it was real. Which I thought was that was a kindness, that if we're talking about evil aliens, well, they would have no reason to explain themselves to him.
I see. Rene Cruz kind of likes the witch hat too. You can see the comments on the side.
Would you like me to explain that?
Did a witch come out of the UFO?
Yes.
Possibly, if his wife was abducted.
The gentleman that put in this UFO report, I asked him if he could please draw me an illustration of what the disc looked like, how far away from the car it was, where his wife was. And when he drew his wife, it's now his ex-wife. She kind of left him over this whole experience because it drove her to God, and it drove him to, read some UFO books and stuff. They reacted to it differently. She was just horrified and scared that it was going to happen again. And ultimately they wound up divorced. So when he did his illustration, he, having the sense of humor he has, he did draw her as a witch, although she is not a witch.
No. She'll be watching this years to come.
They aren't bad either necessarily, but I live in Los Angeles and we have plenty of pagans.
To interview her at all?
She will not talk. She won't talk about it. To her, it was the devil. It was the devil. It wasn't aliens. It was the devil deceiving them and trying to send them to hell. So
were the kids interviewed at all?
We're talking. He's been talking to the older son, and I think that he's actually going to put his 2 cents in about it because he remembers it. The young, of course, the newborn isn't going to remember it. It was a month old, and the other one was a toddler, but there was one that was a little bit older, and apparently he does have some memories of it. Unfortunately, the only other adult that was there is unwilling to speak about it, and I've run into this before. I mean, we had a full-on flying saucer that 2 women took chase at in Azusa, California. Right, this was about 9 months ago. Another really well-documented case and an unknown, the Azusa UFO. And the 2 women that took chase after it, they went through the downtown of the city of Azusa, and they finally got caught in a little cul-de-sac. And again, they were distracted by 2 red orbs that were hovering over the foothills, doing what we call the falling leaf motion, which you see a lot of UFOs do. It's something to do with the propulsion system, but they do this number. They kind of back and forth and kind of wave like that. They're watching this, and then suddenly there's a huge shining light behind them. They turn around, and there again is a full-on classic flying saucer. Now we had a hover point for this, and we would have brought out Geiger counter, taken soil samples, everything, because it was, maybe 25 feet above this tree. Well, I knocked on the door. I knocked on a few neighbors' doors, actually, to find if anybody else had seen it. The neighbors hadn't seen it. We had somebody in the next town over who independently put in a UFO report of the exact same incident. It's just that he saw it from like 3 miles away. He saw the 2 little the two smaller UFOs heading, that were going towards that hill. Anyway, I spoke with a gentleman that owned the house, and he would not talk with me. He said, "I'm a very religious man, and I believe that UFOs are from the devil. Get off my lawn." So the Jeff's ex-wife's reaction is, people are confounded. I mean, it confounds their sense of reality, their sense of what maybe what they've grown up to feel comfort over, and kind of shakes your paradigm. Is what it does. It shakes your paradigm. People like their warm, comfy spot. They like their comfort food. They like to think that the world works this way and heaven is this, and and generally a UFO sighting will come out of left field, and it will batter your preconceptions. And this just not willing to talk to UFO that was hovering over his tree. Even though somebody the next town over, they described the exact same sighting. Unrelated witness. That was a 3-witness sighting. This one, it was 2 witnesses plus the 3 boys, but the second witness is unwilling to talk about it because it's from the devil. So there you go.
Now we got another side chatter here.
That explains the witch hat for you, Renee.
Yeah. Mike Johnson, you got him on fun. I Say Hello. Right. Someone's happy that you're on. He's happy we got Earl from MUFON on.
Thank you. That's Mike. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad you're listening. I'm glad you're here too.
Earl's the most popular MUFON guy.
I don't know. I'm definitely busy MUFON guy.
You ain't got time to die.
No. So at some point we're going to, let me see. We've been on for about, a little over an hour here, I think. Yeah. Well, let me go to another case here.
Yeah.
I literally have my MUFON CMS. The MUFON, we've gone and joined the 21st century. You probably seen the Hainer 1 episodes where they show the rooms full of cardboard boxes. And there's still a little bit of that in the home office. Okay, I've been there. We just recently moved the home office in Irvine, California. And there is a room full of boxes, okay? but the main filing system, of course, now is online.
I don't know if you sent me a picture of that or not.
I did send you a picture of the home office.
Not today, though.
Yeah. I think so. I sent you a picture of the Leonard Stringfield files.
Just having a look on the screen here. Probably a bit small to see. I just zoom in. Hang on. So which one is it? These are the ones I saved. Oh, Hanson, was it?
I'm not sure which one it's going to be. Wait, let me see. It should say, actually, it's going to say Leonard Stringfield file. There it is. It's
at the top. That one,
Leonard Stringfield crash retrieval status reports. And we have that's really interesting at the home office. Now, if you've ever heard of Leonard Stringfield, he was the guy that kind of discovered Roswell. And he was a gentleman that found Jesse Marcel Sr., and Leonard Stringfield was the guy who he was one of the original UFO investigators that really took things using the scientific method, and Occam's razor was his guide. And they have all of his files. MUFON inherited those. And they're in a literal file cabinet. Now, there's like 40 books just like that one that you see there.
Yeah, blurred it out, haven't you? Nothing top secret there.
No. Anything that I redacted it. I redacted the address.
Right, yeah,
the photo,
I see that.
just because.
Just in case.
Because he did that. He did that.
Oh, right.
He was very, very careful not to share names, addresses, or anything like that, of course.
So how many of these folders have you got?
Well, that's the only one from the office, I think. But I was kind of wanting to show that, that's from MUFON's home office, and that is one of Leonard Stringfield's files. There's like 40 of them. Eventually, supposedly, they're trying to scan them and will either publish them or put them online. But right now, you can order his status reports. A lot of them, I think there's maybe 8 or 9 books altogether that you can download from Kindle and stuff. And there's no textbooks available to teach you how to become a ufologist. The closest thing to a textbook for me is Leonard Stringfield's status reports, his crash retrieval status reports. And I've seen the actual ones, and they're in a file in our office. And to me, it's like, should be in the Smithsonian, but we have them, So I'm hopefully going to get to spend some time with those someday. But I got to spend a little time with them. And you'll find the original report on the Roswell crash in there. That's where it is, As Leonard Stringfield was the first guy. And, it's like Fowler and some of the other early ufologists kind of...
I don't know if you can find his photograph or not. I've got a picture of him.
I could have sent you that, but...
Yeah, I could Google it. Hang on. Well, it's a bit slow because we're streaming, but we'll do a search. Actually, I should have copied his name because I probably won't be able to spell it.
Leonard, like Leonard Nimoy, L-E...
Well, I'll just
N-A-R-D.
Is it on that screen?
It's Stringfield. Spell check is going to want to turn it to Springfield, but it's Stringfield.
This way always gets it right. That's if my computer can keep up with us.
Yeah. If I have a hero, it would be Leonard Stringfield. I mean, J. Allen Hynek, sure. After he got finished with the swamp gas stuff and he kind of got a little realer, sure, J. Allen Hynek. But Leonard Stringfield, right off, he knew something was going on. He was meticulous about his reports. And there he is. There you go. That's Leonard Stringfield. Another bearded guy.
About. There we go. Oh, he got a bit old there, didn't he?
Yeah. He lived to 1994 is when he passed away, I believe. His book Situation Red is a wonderful thing. I don't think that was his photo, but you can see his UFO crash retrieval status reports are on the screen there, and I highly recommend them. It's highly recommended reading if you're interested in using the scientific method in your UFO studies. It's just wonder stuff. And it's not dry reading, it's just really kind of interesting, exciting, and but yet scientifically accurate, meticulous.
Looks like it might be an Audible file there, actually. Looks like it's a audio book.
Yeah, you can get them on audio. I actually have a few of them on Audible, which is nice.
I suppose it's not free though, is it?
No,
copyrighted. Yeah.
No, if you want to read it for free, you have to go to the MUFON home office and look through the file cabinets. I'm afraid.
So we got to line up at the door and let Jan's got to let us in.
Yeah, we never know. Jan's actually a really very nice guy and very forthcoming, and I have nothing but good stuff to say about Jan Harzan. He's a very amicable guy, and he's got sort of a gee whiz golly thing to him. He's you
never actually met the guy. When did he die?
I never met Leonard Stringfield. I wish I had.
He would have died before.
My friend Dr. Irina Scott actually got to meet him a few times and had really good things to say about him. She's a PhD and she has a couple of books that just put out her book Inside the Lightning Ball, which I thought was wonderful. And she kind of writes a little bit like Leonard Stringfield. I thought maybe it was that connection or something,
So
I know I look like the cat that ate the canary in that photo. But you have to realize it's like if you're a Beatles fan, I just found the Cavern Club more or less, or
Yep.
So, so I have
So
another
moving
case for
on.
you if you'd like.
Yeah.
This is
I'll
a
bring up
more
the
recent
photographs.
case.
What's the
This is a
number?
I will tell you the
I'll
number
bring
of
up the
it.
images.
I wasn't
I
going to
got.
share this one, but it's my most recent abduction
Ah,
case.
right. So there's no photograph for it.
This one, no, I don't have any photographs for it. This one, he doesn't wish to remain anonymous. So I'll tell
Right.
you, the gentleman, it was, the report number is, I'm scrolling up to it, 89926. This, the report came out, we got it January 31st, 2018.
So I won't be able to search on the database for it then if it's not public.
It'll be up there. It should be up there. Is
You reckon?
89926.
Well, let's
CMS
see.
number 89926.
Yeah.
And the gentleman's name is Christopher. He doesn't wish to remain anonymous, but I don't know. Chris
Oh,
Logston was his name. So this was an abduction
2,
case.
what was the number again? Sorry.
Hold on. I
Eight,
have to scroll. This is case number 89926.
Okay, we got it this time.
Okay, good. And this was closed as an unknown. And the main reason why I closed it as an unknown is because the gentleman who submitted the report, first of all, is a Mensa member. Very, very high IQ, very smart gentleman.
Oh, it's a long report. Yep.
And he had his mother has witnessed
right.
strange happenings in the house. So this was a 2-witness case. Very, very intelligent young man, and it was closed as an unknown. One of my 16.
That's the right one?
Yes. Well,
wait.
You could read it, but I'm going to read it to you because I was the first person that read this, other than, I guess,
Is that about the
Jeff,
7-year-old?
got it.
7 years ago. Right? I was 7
Yes.
years old.
Now
Okay,
you're going to
I'll let
see
you read it.
that age. The age 7 comes up over and over and over and over again with these abduction cases. It's very, very weird. I've noticed a pattern about it, that it seems to start at age 7. Now, whether that's because you suddenly start remembering things from that age, or it actually begins at that age, I don't know. But I hear 7 years of age. It's a recurring thing. This is how it all started for me. I was 7 years old in my bedroom at night watching South Park at 9 p.m. I was sitting on my bedroom floor with my back up against my bed. Just as the intro started to play, I heard this hum that got louder and louder, and you will hear that as well. You'll hear it described as an uncomfortable sounding hum. I noticed that a blinding white light was coming from the cracks of my door. All of a sudden, the door slowly opened and the light filled my room. It was the brightest light I have ever seen. It blinded me. For some reason, I remember thinking it was my mother, so I reached up to put my hand up to grab her, but my arm felt like it was 1,000,000 pounds, and I collapsed. I never saw an entity this time, but then I totally blacked out. Next thing I know, I'm right back where I was when I was watching TV, only I remember thinking I should have been on the ground, slumped over, because I collapsed. But I was back in place where I was before I saw the light. I looked up my train clock. He had a little clock like, I guess it was Thomas the Train. I looked up at my train clock, and it was 2:30 a.m. I remember it didn't feel like 5 hours had passed. It felt like it had been seconds since I saw the light and heard that hum. I looked down at both arms, and they were covered in bruises and scratch marks on my forearms. I felt exhausted, like there's no way I had just been asleep. I felt like I had run a marathon. After that night, I had hundreds of experiences similar to this. Sleep paralysis as well, but those experiences were vastly different from the abduction-esque phenomena. It all came to an abrupt stop when I was 13 years old. That's a whole different story in and of itself. I've always been troubled by this. I want to know what happened that night. To all who have open minds, know that there is something out there. What it is exactly, I don't know, but it's something real, rest assured. Now, when I was trying to get a hold of this guy, I wasn't having such great luck at first. But who would answer the phone was his mom. And I told her who I was, and she was saying, "Oh, good, good, good. He did call you. He did call you." And she said, "I've been telling him that he should, you know." And so even before I spoke with the witness, I talked with the second witness, and she described seeing strange lights, weird noises, and she confirmed to me. She said, "Well, my son is a Mensa member. His IQ is just off the charts. And he has no other weird things about him. He's just kind of a normal kid. He's a smart kid, but ever since he was 7 years old, he's had these happenings, and I'm going to tell you, it's real." And I encouraged him to make a report to you guys. So I spoke with her for a long time. She recounted what she knew about what he had experienced. And when I spoke with him on the phone, indeed, it was exactly as he had described in his initial report. He added more detail to it, of course. It was, you know, as you'll have, but the facts remained the same. It was not embellished. And that's something that you'll notice when you get a questionable case. With each telling, they're going to add something to make it a little bit better. You know, and it's going to become a little wilder. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell me that the first time? You know, with this guy, I talked with him and I interviewed him a few times. When I first interviewed him on the phone, it was very close to this story, but just with more detail. But it didn't differ one whit from his initial report and what his mother had said happened to him as well. And after that, with the future tellings of what he had gone through, it was exactly the same. And there was always a sense of wonder that was there. You could tell that this guy was very smart. That kind of confounded him because it was outside of the arena of what intellectuals will usually, you know, you'll see a lot of people like Seth Shostak or Carl Sagan, where, you know, extreme. What was Carl's favorite line? You know the one that crazy. I just brain fart here, but you know, you need extraordinary claims.
I'm the same.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary, you know, evidence. And but you know, as many of you guys out there probably know, with the UFO phenomenon, especially with experiencer cases and abductions, you don't always get evidence. A lot of it is almost like on a paranormal level. It's just the weirdest, kind of the fuzziest physics that I've ever encountered. But yet, you know, you hear the same things repeated over and over from different people, from different backgrounds. You know, it could be a mathematician or a doctor or a lawyer, Homeland Security guy, oil worker, or a Mensa member. And this guy is like, he's a young man. He's maybe 20, 21 years old. He's not that old. But you hear recurring things like the age 7. You hear about the walls.
He didn't do any drawings for this case. He didn't do any drawings at all. He didn't draw what he saw.
He wasn't an artistic kind of guy. No. He probably could have come up with some mathematical formulae for us, because he was that kind of a guy. But no, he didn't have an artistic bent, and he kind of, you know, you could tell, you know, I mean, I wanted to talk with him a few times, and I always do with experiencer cases, and I kind of picked up from him after maybe the third call is sort of like, well, I already told you everything, you know, what I didn't really want to say, well, but I want to see if you're gonna extrapolate on that and add stuff to make it better. No, he just it's what he experienced. You could tell that he was talking from memory, and there you go. That was my most recent experiencer case. I've got another one I'm working on right now, but I haven't closed it yet. I need to speak with a second witness. I have a case with a brother and a sister who were abducted from the rooftop of their home in the projects out here. And I've spoken with the brother, but I still need to speak with the sister. It may be an unknown. I may give it an unknown.
Have they got any drawings?
Not from that one yet. Not from that one
yet.
Get
the drawer. No. Give them the drawer, and you can come on another time with that case.
And you know, another thing
we want to see what they see.
Yeah. Well, this guy is a Christian minister. He has everything to lose. This will be another one where I won't be able to put the name out there. He told me that he had talked with his colleagues about he and his sister being abducted from the rooftop in 1992 again, like the Jeff Edgemon case was 92. It was a very active year out here. A lot of UFO sightings and a lot of abduction cases. But he spoke with his colleagues, and again, you know, they're going, well, you know, that's from the devil, and that's, you know, and he's going, well, no, you know, I mean, why would God, you know, finish creation with us? We're not necessarily the crown of creation, you know. In fact, humans are pretty bad to each other. You know? If we're the crown of creation, we're, you know, I mean, that's not too good. So he has an interesting point of view. He has everything to lose, though, so I can't share his name. You know, I can't share his name. They'll be in his file.
Always have this from school days where you used to have a teacher saying there can't be aliens coming here, and I said, why not? We're not necessarily the first creatures alive in the whole universe, and the aliens could have been around for billions of years, because we know how old the universe is. It's at least 14 billion years old. So they've got plenty of time to travel light speed to us, or even at slow speed to us in the billion years.
And we're finding out new ways of propulsion right now. I mean, physics are getting fuzzier every day.
Humans to survive will have to venture out to space and start colonizing planets, because our planet could blow up, you know, or something could happen from that meteorite heat hit. Because we had that strange cylinder meteorite come into our solar system not long ago, and we didn't even know that existed, and they didn't have any cameras up there to film it, so they could only do it by radio frequencies and estimate how long it was and all that sort of stuff. There was no actual image of it. It was just like a blur. But yeah, so for humans to survive, we've got to colonize. We've got to go out into space on spaceships and colonize at least Mars to start with, you know.
All you have to do is look at the moon.
If aliens were doing the same thing, but if aliens were doing the same thing, they would have ships that they could live in, that would grow food, they would have nuclear power to drive UV lights that make the plants grow, and they'd just travel through space and then set up a moon base here and there and just keep on going. And they could have been doing that for millions of years. So they could be out in the outer rim of our solar system quite easily and just travel in spaceships to us every few months or whatever, with mothership, and then send some probes down to see what we're doing. So everything's possible.
Sure. I mean, UFOs that people see, everything isn't a mothership. I mean, the Roswell craft didn't have... It didn't have anything in it, you know, except for guidance systems, apparently. And it wasn't like there was a bathroom or a kitchenette. It was a shuttlecraft.
No.
And that seems to be the case.
Mothership out in space, and the little crafts come down.
Certainly.
Yeah. And there was no bathroom in their little shoot-up ships in the movie.
We don't know if they go.
That's one of my favorite movies.
We don't know. Yeah.
I like that movie. I like Contact. I like ID4. I like Star Wars, of course.
Sure.
I like some of the early ones. The Earth Stood Still was one of the classic
It's a great one. One of my favorites.
And Forbidden Planet. probably one of my favorite ones.
It's a good one too. How about 2001: A Space Odyssey? I mean, the end of it. I mean, that's my view of aliens keeps on getting closer and closer to what is portrayed at the end of 2001. I mean, they seem like they're more godlike. You know, I think about this a lot. I mean, I'm supposed to. You know, I'm chief investigator for MUFON, so I better. You know, but I've thought about it a lot, and I sometimes wonder if we've actually met the entities themselves. I mean, they say that the Greys act robotic, and maybe they're biological robots. They may think that the 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, and eyes is comforting to us. Well, that looks like a human. We meet the aliens, it might look more like a spider or a amoeba or what have you, octopus. Yeah, we don't know.
But then you got the Flexmore monster was a bit scary though.
Which was
the Flexmore monster? That's what it was called, wasn't it? FLAX.
I'm not sure if I saw
that. Like an L. And it gives off this gas that killed the dog or something.
Right. Well, it sounds like you're talking about John Carpenter's Thing. That's a pretty scary movie.
No, it's called the Flexmore Monster. I'm pretty sure. And they call it the Flexmore Monster.
The Flatwood Monster. Right. No, the Flatwood Monster.
Oh, Flatwood. I thought it was Flexwood.
Yeah. No, it's the Flatwood Monster. Sorry. Yeah, he sort of looked robotic, but then had sort of a skirt kind of thing.
I was thinking it was spelled this way with the FA.
That was one of John Keel's cases, I believe.
Yeah,
you know, John Keel, he liked those weird entity cases. He liked Mothman and all that stuff. He's an interesting cat, John Keel.
I'll see if I can find an image of it. Is it Flatmore? Flatmore. I thought it was
Flatwood. The Flatwoods monster.
Where am I getting more from?
I'm not sure. Flatwoods. You got it.
I must be getting mixed up with another UFO case.
That's it. It's one word though. Flatwoods.
Yeah, that's a real strange looking.
That's it.
Creature there. I'll click on that one.
Absolutely.
That is really weird.
I was speaking at a site at a flying
saucer. That looks scary.
Yeah. I spoke at a flying saucer film convention that they had in San Francisco, and they had a life-sized model of that. And I would have sent it to you if I knew you were going to talk about it. But,
no.
I actually
got to bring it up another time.
Yeah,
I
like the Flatwoods Monster, but he kind of, is one of John Keel's cases. He liked those strange entity cases. I got a weird entity case in that was kind of spooky, but the woman never got hold of me again. I'm going to keep calling. And sometimes somebody will put in a UFO report and then they think better of it afterwards. It's like, oh, I'm scared, or what if the government goes after me, or you never know. 1 out of 10 cases, you can't ever get a hold of them. They get scared and wish they maybe hadn't put a report in. But hopefully I get to, I haven't had a spooky entity case yet, so that would be a good one to do, especially if it's in Los Angeles.
That'd be a good one to cover, because you probably got some good stuff on that one, and some other scary ones. I like the other one back in the 1960s, was it, where he climbs up in a tree and they're trying to get him with and he shoots arrows down at
the
him.
Hopkins? Are you talking about the Hopkinsville?
Oh, I don't know I don't know the name of it. Sorry, I know.
There was the Hopkinsville. It was in Kansas, I think, where the farm was.
Oh, and he had to climb from the tree.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Ruben Uriarte wrote a book about that. I can tell you, I have the book. Hold on. It happened near Sacramento. Hold on.
Yeah,
I got to look at my library here.
But I know he was firing arrows.
It's in my other bookcase. But that happened up in the woods near Lake Tahoe. And
that would be one of the
robots.
Abduction cases. Well, they tried to abduct him, but they weren't going to get anywhere near him by the sounds of it, because he was way up on the top of the tree and he was shooting arrows at him.
Yep. He went top of the tree. He put his belt around his waist and tied the belt to the tree, and so he wouldn't fall out. And they were trying to get him. They were doing all kinds of stuff to make him uncomfortable, and
scary.
And eventually they gave up, apparently, or maybe they did. Maybe they did abduct him, and he doesn't remember. I mean, I've thought true. That. The gentleman that happened to, he passed away last year. He stuck to the story till the day he died. He said that he was no way in hell going to let them abduct him, and tied himself. He would
be
to
a good
tree.
One to interview.
It's too late.
Like
Ruben
Travis Welton.
Uriarte. Yeah, Ruben wrote a book about it.
Google days.
You know, Ruben, who wrote the book on that case, he's my closest neighbor here. Well, he runs Northern California MUFON, so he's a state director for Northern California, and then my boss Jeff California, assistant state director. Oh, I got to be chief investigator. That's cool. You know, I love that title. It's my favorite. So,
yeah.
Well, would you like to talk about anything else, Paul? Or
you got a few more cases.
Anybody have any questions out there?
Unless you're tired.
Sure. I can do some more cases for you. So
Renee says here. Let's have a read. This is an awesome live chat show.
Thank you, Renee.
Yeah, and I said thanks. And 1952, the 9-foot tall flat woods robotic extraterrestrial. So he's on to it.
That's the one we were talking about. That's a good one.
Mike's got to go. He said it was good seeing Earl again. So some good feedback there on the side. I know we'd only covered 3 or 4 of this cases.
Yeah, I have more. Hold on one second. Let me see.
How about that green one?
Yeah.
I know you're probably getting a bit tired. How long have you been going for? I can go all night.
That one? We'll do that one, and we'll call it a night after that. How's that? Okay.
You want to talk about the guy with the arm thing?
We could do that some other time, maybe. I think I've got more photos better photos than the one that I showed you.
Let's see.
I just have to find it.
Right.
That was a scary one.
Well, I
can tell you a little bit about.
Okay, let's talk about the scary one.
These are both scary. Okay.
Okay.
So you might have bad dreams tonight.
I never get scared. I beat up paranormals.
This guy had put in another case. Okay, his other case. He had a picture of a triangular mark that appeared on his body, and I thought it was an interesting case. I was a new investigator at the time. I didn't give him an unknown for the first one because I was still kind of being trained, and I think Jeff was being a little hardcore on me. And he said, well, you need to get a bit more evidence in. So I closed it in a way to where I sort of kept it open in a way. Then I got this case from the same gentleman. It was about 1.5 years later. And he was working as a nightclub bouncer. Again, from age 7, he began having experiences where he would be taken through his ceiling. A lot of people, it'll be either their wall will do the little Scooby-Doo effect, the little, and they come through the wall, or you go through the wall or the window. Every now and then you get them coming through the ceiling, or your ceiling becomes semi-permeable and you go through the ceiling to the UFO. In his case, he went through the ceiling. Now we're not sure it was dropped. He did not remember anything except for the portal opening up, the light coming into his room. And next thing he knows, he's lying in bed. He's waking up. His clothes are disheveled. They're not on right. And he has this huge bruise that's from his shoulder down, not quite to the antecubital space of his arm, but kind of down that direction. As you can see, it's from his shoulder. There's even kind of a scary. The first picture that you showed there, Paul, is you can see sort of the scratch marks.
Okay.
I actually checked to see if anybody had had an industrial accident in the area. I mean, it was just really weird. This one, Jeff, my boss, almost insisted that. Well,
almost looks like a little hand with 4 or 3 fingers there. Like he's got grabbed by a kid's hand.
He explained that he had similar bruises before, where it was in the shape of like a 3-fingered hand. And that was very observant of you there, Paul, because I didn't even mention that yet. But no, I noticed that as well. He did get an unknown, just because it's again recurring history of abductions, and very just a quiet guy.
Right.
He does not, I can't share his name. He doesn't want his name out there, so he doesn't have anything to gain. I mean, he doesn't have anything to gain. His girlfriend left him because of the abductions, because she just got sick of it. I mean, the house would flood with light, and this weird stuff would happen, and she finally got sick of it. So when I met him and I went and spoke with him in his house in Hollywood, California, it was just I was very impressed with his case. And just a very down-to-earth guy. Didn't know anything about UFOs really, except just, if you'd watched a couple, maybe Ancient Aliens or something. I mean, he just was confounded by what was going on. And that was actually quite a good case. And I don't want to bring his name up, though, because I'm pretty sure that one was anonymous. I know his name, because that's another.
Yeah.
These are all ongoing cases. I mean, you can close an abduction case.
Looks very sore, anyway.
Oh yeah, and he said it didn't hurt. He said that there was zero pain. That he didn't even realize that the bruise was there until he looked in the mirror and there's this mess on his arm.
It is a mess.
And my boss said, "It looks maybe they dropped him from the UFO." Well, maybe they did. I don't know.
Well, Peter Robbins talked about a case where a man was lifted up through the roof, like you're saying this one was, but it went wrong. And just as he was penetrating the ceiling, some of the UFO tractor beam malfunctioned, and he dropped straight to the bed, but it ripped just a chunk of his back or skin left into the ceiling. He reckons.
In the ceiling.
Yeah.
Well, that's
and he was rushed to the hospital. He was rushed to the hospital and got stitches or something. That's an interesting case.
My God.
We should get Peter Robbins on with you and have you both on talking about these crazy cases.
Sure.
He probably would come on too, wouldn't he? If you're on.
He probably would. He's pretty busy right now. Is he? Well, he
I've
was
seen
just
parties
out here
with you and him at the pub recently.
Sure. He was out doing filming an Ancient Aliens episode, actually.
Right. Was he celebrating?
I don't know if you can hear that. People are still shooting off fireworks out here after the 4th of July.
What it was? I thought Lisa tripped over the rubbish can or something in the kitchen.
That was an M80 firecracker somebody was letting off out here. San Fernando Valley, and we have everybody celebrates here. You don't have to go to a fireworks show because it sort of is a fireworks show here.
They've tried to ban them in our country lots of times, but they still sell little ones. They don't sell the big ones.
Yeah, that's like that here too.
Because
those are illegal fireworks we're hearing right now. Those are illegal fireworks.
Yeah. We have it
here too. The cool ones usually are, Yeah. Bottle rockets, no, you can't buy those. You can't buy firecrackers. You can buy the little sparklers, depending on what town you're in. Here, you can't even buy those. I mean, it's all verboten. When I was a kid growing up, you could buy, a lot of that stuff, but not so much now. Not in Los Angeles, anyway. Huh?
So what was the other scary case you said?
Okay, well, this one is, I'm going to leave you guys with this one. This is case, it's CMS number 22698. And the case disposition I gave it was an unknown other. This is the original witness CMS statement. And this was somebody that watched an abduction
So what was
take
the
place.
picture for that one?
Hmm?
Was that the green UFO one?
That's the green UFO that happened out in Palos Verdes.
Which one was that one now?
And this was 1992 again, by the way. These were like all these, isn't that weird? I mean, these were all 1992 cases for the most part. Another 1992, which was, again, a very busy year. This guy had not reported it. I spoke, again, this was somebody who I spoke with a few times. And he told me that you're going through the litany.
I'm trying to find it. Oh, there we go.
There you go. I kind of did a sort of a fantasy background for it, but pretty much that's what it looked like. It was, like the two plates put on top of each other with a little dome top, and green lights running around the rim. And he could see this driving, like he could see it about a mile away. It's the Pacific Coast Highway. It was late at night. It was kind of desolate at the time. And he could see this area coming up that was near the Palos Verdes lighthouse, where he said that they maybe were, that he thought maybe they were filming a movie, that it was like, arc lights for a film. He didn't know what it was, but he was driving home from work or driving home from a date. And,
okay.
Well, this was what he wrote. I was driving home from a date late in mid-August 1992. I lived in Lomita, but it was a beautiful night, so I decided to take the long way home by taking Palos Verdes Drive north, which snakes along the cliffs of Palos Verdes. After driving through Lunada Bay, I could see in the distance a greenish glow coming from the Point Vicente Cove direction. As I got closer, the greenish bioluminescent glow, it grew, and it grew stronger. I finally rounded the corner where the turnout to the cove was, and the glow by then was all-consuming. I pulled my car over in the turnout that they have there, half expecting to see a movie being shot. I got out of the car, and as I walked over to the cliff's edge, I noticed 3 people to my left who were looking down at whatever was in the cove. It was unusual because I saw no other car parked. It was dark, but I could tell it was a family of 3, a mom, a dad, and a small boy. The mother had her arm around the child. I continued to the cliff's edge and peered over. Directly in the exact middle of the cove and hovering 8 feet above the water was a classic saucer-shaped domed craft, ringed with green lights, no more than 50 yards from me. It was big, at least 40 feet across. It was domed and it had unreal skin. The closest thing that I could compare it to is a slick, oily puddle. The rainbow colors were dull but prismatic and had a swirling motion. It began to hum, and as it did, the water beneath it began to bubble and steam. I yelled over to the family left of me, but they stood there silent, motionless, mesmerized by what they were seeing, or so I thought. I was beginning to get spooked. I wanted to see the craft submerge or take off, but I was getting an overwhelming feeling of dread. I couldn't believe my luck or horror or my eyes seeing this astonishment up so close and personal. I looked over to the family, but they were rounding the corner, heading down the path that led to the water's edge. That was it. I wasn't going to stick around. I got in my car. I took off. This story has been weighing my mind down lately. Thank you for the catharsis. Now, this was another gentleman who I spoke with a few different times. He was very eloquent in his description of this craft. There was a lot of emotion involved. And in speaking with him, the third time I spoke with him, he said that the main reason why he had gotten a hold of MUFON was because he felt like a sense of guilt. He wondered what had happened to that child. I remember I asked him, well, are you sure that that was a kid? You know, I mean, it could have been. And no, he said that they were in street clothes, and it looked like a family, that they were walking zombie-like towards this craft. And with the water bubbling like a cauldron, he was really, really afraid. He was afraid that they were going to take him as well. In fact, I'm surprised they didn't. You know, you usually don't walk up to, you know, Travis Walton's buddies saw what happened. You usually don't have an observer. You know, they're usually, you know, silenced. They're you know, put out and put in some form of stasis, and they come to later, or their minds are erased of the memory. But this guy, it sounds like he got there right at a pivotal moment when these people were walking up to this craft. He said that they were walking up like nobody's business, like they were walking up to the carnival or walking up to the coffee shop, or that there was no fear. It was just, they just kind of zombie-like trundled down the path all the way down to the beach, and that's when he got the hell out of there.
We got some pictures, I think. Hang on. We got some pictures off the beach one you're talking about.
There's a picture of the lighthouse. So there's a map of the area. That's back to the Homeland Security case.
Yeah, I'll just scroll
through. It should say Palos Verdes. That's Seth Shostak and Jan Harrison. That's me and Seth Shostak.
Right.
I got to, you know, I got to debate him at Alien Con around it. Not in public, but in front of Jan Harzan. That was kind of cool.
What was that case? Yeah.
There it is.
That's the lighthouse one.
You got.
Is that what the green UFO was? It?
That's it.
Was it?
You see the area there? That's exactly where he saw it. It was in that little cove.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have a nighttime picture of it. No, but I just kind of did that for example's sake to show how large the saucer was, where it was positioned. That's the exact point where he saw it and where he saw the people walking down.
And that's the map of it.
Yes.
Was golf course up behind it, and the lighthouse there was it. So yeah.
Now there's, you know, when I was interviewing him, he said this is quote. Seeing this, it changed my view of reality. I haven't been able to not think about it. I heard about MUFON. I thought I might be able to get a bit of closure if I were to report it to you guys. I've often thought of the family and what was happening there, and I hope that they are okay. And the way I closed the case, because we have to come up with a disposition for the case, and I said there are no known phenomena, natural or man-made, that fit the description of the object described by the witness. And he did get his unknown. Usually I want to have a couple of witnesses for these, but the man was so, he was so emotional in the telling of it. And I spoke with him 3 different times. He was so eloquent in his, and you could tell that he was remembering, that he wasn't, like, for instance, now I had an abduction case recently that I wrote off as a fraud, because the guy stole stuff from a science fiction movie. He kept embellishing. He was boisterous at times about it. And it just didn't have the ring of truth. And every time that he had it written down, and you could tell he was reading from a piece of paper. It wasn't his memory. It was not recall. He used the same words. And he actually made the report 2 different times to MUFON. He didn't think the one time was enough. And he wrote the exact word-for-word description. He was going from a 3rd document there. So he didn't get...
So he's talking about... He's talking about the family. Did that family ever come forward? He's seen a family down below, he said, on the article there.
That's all she wrote. That's all we know. As far as we know, you know, it's like mom and dad are retired, living in, you know, gated community, and the kid is running I mean, it was 1992. It was a while ago. Or maybe they're still, maybe they're off in the cosmos somewhere. Maybe they're living on, you know, I don't know. I mean, that was kind of all. I mean, he just wanted to get the hell out of there, And he told me, he said that it bothered him, and his emotions were very, very convincing to me. I mean, I don't think there were tears involved, but I think it was close. I mean, you could hear his voice shaking. He was recounting a memory, and it was one that had made a huge impact on the guy. And,
just imagine if they had smartphones back in 1992, we might have a picture of this.
We might have a really good photograph there. I mean, you've got some, UFO photos, but not so much contemporaneously. They're usually the older, the older ones for the 60s, 50s, and such. But this one, it looks like perhaps what was going on with the family was
it makes you wonder
sidetracking the aliens.
It makes you wonder if any lighthouse keeper saw it as well, because the lighthouse is there.
It could have. That's actually kind of I didn't think of doing that. What was 1992?
Right.
And I doubt it wouldn't be the same person. But it's certainly a case that I could spend more time on. And as you know,
I think they're
with all
automated now.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody lives in there.
Stuff.
Yeah.
They probably have a webcam just to keep an eye on it or something.
But 1992, maybe not. I mean, you might have something there. I mean, it's probably automatic, but that would have been quite the view.
Makes you wonder if that was on radar as well, because it's quite a big craft. 50 feet, you said.
It was 50 feet. It's 50 feet.
It's low down though, but if it's probably
it
no
was
radar.
Low down. It was below the cliff line there. It was 8 feet above the waves.
Makes you wonder if it come from under the sea.
Could have been. I would get that. That's my guess.
USA.
Or else he would have seen it flying.
Could be an undersea base there.
Yeah. No, he just came upon the scene. It was a tableau. It was waiting for him there.
I wish I'd come across that. I'd love
I'd rather see it than be in it. That's for sure. And I don't know.
I don't know. I'd like to see how it works.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, and when I got into being an actual UFO researcher, I'm a guy, and we think of flying saucers sort of like we think of Corvettes and hot cars, or but there's so much more than just the craft and the futuristic streamlined elements of that. I mean, I opened up Pandora's box, started this up. I never would have guessed that I would have really been concentrating on mostly experiencer cases, but that's just kind of what came my way. And they found that I had a propensity for it, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
A lot of what I do, and hopefully this will work out with Kathleen Martin's, experiencer research team, and I'll have plenty of stories for you if that takes hold. It sounds like it probably will. So.
Yeah. And I think we've covered most of them, apart from that V craft one.
We'll do that one next time. That one, maybe I can get the gentleman that report happened to is now one of my field investigators. It had made such an impression on him. It was more or less his whole astronomy class. They were on a rooftop and they saw a UFO through a telescope. He got an unknown on his case, and now he's a field investigator for us, and his major, he's becoming an astrophysicist right now. So it'll make a huge impression on you. That is from Andy's case. That was the machine that would come into Andy's room. Yeah, that was a Homeland Security agent. When he was 7 years old, that would come into his room, hover over him. It had really, yes. It's very, very strange.
Probably
and that would come into his room.
Robot's probe.
Yeah,
robot probe by looks of it.
He told me that he's never been abducted, that they've always come to him. And that does happen sometimes. You hear about abductions, but that's not always the case. Sometimes they can join the space between their craft and your home or wherever you were, and they sort of build one large space. The two, it's a dimensional thing, I believe. And so they would come through. They would come to his room with this object, and it horrified him as a child. By the way, it horrified him.
Right.
His family thought he just had night terrors. Not so much now. His mom remembers all of it. Eventually, when she comes out to visit Andy, I'm hoping to interview her, and then I'll have one more big piece of that puzzle, the first-hand account. So I think that's going to happen too. I keep in touch with him. He's interesting guy, and he's kind of he's a Boy Scout kind of a guy. He's a sort of guy where if you were in trouble, you would hope that he was there for you. Type of person that would pull over and help change your tire, and that's the kind of guy he is. So it's an interesting case. It's an ongoing case, and there you go. A very strange machine. 7 years old. It's going to give you some nightmares. That's for sure.
I did open up the side. I posted the Hangouts if anyone wants to join and ask Earl from MUFON any questions while he's here. If not, we'll let him go because he's nearing midnight there at the moment, or what?
I'm not even sure. 10:30. So we've been going for about 2.5 hours. That's pretty good. So I'll save you that other case next when we talk. My astrophysicist, field investigator. Yeah. That's a good one.
Go anytime you want. Yeah, I'll probably have to wrap up soon because it'll be my dinner time.
All right, Paul. Well, thank you, everybody.
I might just start another stream later. Yeah. I might just start another stream later, and you'll be out, but I'll start it for the UK guys or whatever. See how I feel anyway. But have a good night.
Well, thank you for having me on there, Paul. Again, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, Renee and Michael and the rest of you who had questions and nice comments. And keep looking up. Join MUFON.
We did get up to 8 people at one stage. Yes,
fantastic.
Join MUFON.
All right. See you later, guys.
Good night, Earl.
Bye now.
See ya. Bye. So, just me, and we haven't got QVid because he'd probably be working. So who we got on the side? Anyone that wants to talk? We just got Mike, is it? And Renee. So if perhaps I'll start another stream up later on, see how I feel after dinner. But that was a good chat about some of the unusual cases from MUFON. And he's got some more for us later by the looks of it. I was hoping to see implant that he talked about that had wires, but he said the guy only showed it to him on his mobile phone. And he didn't actually have an image of it, which is a damn shame. And it's not a MUFON case. It was a personal case. He did it on behalf of himself to the German guy in California. But it would have been good to see the implant. So, yeah, probably just wrap it up if no one wants to pop on and chat. I'll just cue some music and I'll catch you guys later, maybe, if you're still up. Probably get some UK guys maybe later on. I thought they might have got up early for the live stream. So I'll just wrap it up now, guys. Thanks for joining us, and have a good night. Wrong button. This one, I think it is. There we go. Getting used to this stream and stuff, and multiple screens and buttons you have to press. Good night, everybody.